What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Debate Mates. I'm Matthew Swanenberg, and we are about halfway through the NBA season. Teams have played about 41 games, got about 41 games left to play. We're almost at the All-Star break, and this is the point of the season where teams kind of have to do some reflection. They have to figure out, are we contenders? Do we make some trades to go all in at the deadline? Or do we kind of fall back and hope that we can get one of the generational prospects at the top of this NBA draft, someone like Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey, guys that are projected to be franchise superstars one day? So as these teams start to reflect and try to figure out who they're going to be or what they're going to be as the season moves into its back half, I want to say what every team's goal should be. I'm going to start in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference. This is going to be the first part of a 6-part series where I just say what I think every team's goal should be going forward in the second half of the NBA season. Starting with the Boston Celtics. They are the best team in the division. They're the reigning NBA champions. I think a lot of people would still have them pegged as the team to beat in the entire NBA. They're currently the third best team in the league behind the Cavs, who are surging, of course, in the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they are pretty set at second in the Eastern Conference. Of course, the Cavs are 5.5 games ahead, and the Celtics are a little bit ahead of the inconsistent Knicks. The Celtics, because of where they're placed in the conference and because it seems like they're going to be stuck there at number 2 as we head into the postseason, I say they should just stay the course. They're top 5 still in net rating, in defense, and in offense. Teams that have that combination are always championship contenders. You kind of have to be top 5 in all 3 of those stats, it feels like, to be considered in that upper echelon of teams, and the Celtics are. So although recently there has been some panic about the Celtics or around the Celtics because the 3 ball hasn't been falling, they've lost to some bad teams recently. They've lost to the Raptors twice this season, actually. They've lost to the Pacers. They lost to the Sixers on Christmas Day, and the Sixers are a team we'll get to later who are going to complete opposite direction of the direction the Celtics are hoping to go. But like I said, there is some panic around the Celtics right now, but the numbers still show that this is a really good team capable of winning the championship. So rather than try to swing a big trade, they definitely do have some deficiencies. Like I said, the 3 ball hasn't been falling as consistently this year. There are some shooters on the market that you could go after if you are the Celtics. Maybe a backup big man if you don't have faith in Luke Cornett and you don't have faith in Al Horford holding up through the playoffs. But this team is basically the same team that won it last year. I have no reservations about whether or not they can run it back. I think they're just as talented, just as deep, and I think guys like Peyton Pritchard have taken a step forward, and guys seem to be a little bit more comfortable in their roles this season. The only problem is the 3-point shooting. The Celtics offense has always been predicated on being able to knock down the 3 ball, and this year they're just not knocking it down at the same clip that they did last year when they were a juggernaut that ran through the league and made it clear from opening day that they were basically going to win the championship unless Nikola Jokic could put the Nuggets on his back and bring the Nuggets a back-to-back championship. But like I said, Celtics just not being able to knock down the 3 this year is their real kryptonite. They're less than 35% from 3 on 47 attempts in December, in January, and in these 2 months, they were only 13-9. Prior to that, they were around 39% from 3 on more attempts, 50 attempts per game. Those were the first 2 months of the season, October and November, and they were 16-3. It feels so long ago, and because of how well the Cavs started off, it doesn't feel like it was ever a conversation. But as well as the Cavs were playing, the Celtics were knocking on the door of the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference for most of the beginning of the season. Of course, now they've fallen off. The Cavs have stayed hot. But like I said, Celtics just should stay the course. The 3-point shooting will come back up. Derek White's having an off year from 3. Drew Holiday's having an off year from 3. Tatum is having an off year from 3. Specifically, a couple of off months, or especially a couple of off months that these guys are having in these 2 months where the 3-point ball hasn't been able to fall for anybody, December and January, like I said. So I think this team just stay the course. There are some places that they could, like I said, bolster the rotation, maybe a different backup 5, maybe some shooting off of the bench, but I'm confident in guys like Peyton Pritchard, who have stepped up a lot this year. Luke Cornett and Al Horford were very serviceable in the playoffs. Al Horford seemingly will never fall off. He will never lose to Father Time. We all talk about LeBron in this battle with Father Time. Al Horford's in the same fight right now. He's not as good, but he also hasn't declined. So Al Horford somehow is still kicking around, which is why I think a backup 5 maybe is a little bit redundant. Of course, you could always look to improve, but you have him there for the long haul. I think people are also concerned about how this team has fared with Kristaps Porzingis back in the lineup. I think a lot of people thought that, again, was going to put them over the edge. That's what it did last year, but they've fallen back down to earth since he was healthy. A lot of that has coincided with the 3 ball not falling. You could say that there is some causation there, but I have no reason to believe there is because I saw this team dominate all of last year. They have the same coach. They have the same starting 5. They have the same important bench pieces. I think this is a team that has their foot off of the gas a little bit. We heard it in the preseason. Jaylen Brown said, when we play the Pistons on a Tuesday, Peyton Pritchard can go score 30 if he wants to. Like, we are going chill mode, basically. And it's kind of reflected in this team's performance, how it started off so hot, send the message, okay, this is the team that we are. We killed the Knicks on opening day. We beat the Cavs when the Cavs were undefeated, I believe 15-0 to start the season, and Celtics knock them off then. So they sent messages to the best teams in the league early on. And since then, maybe they realized we're not catching the Cavs, the Knicks aren't catching us. Chill a little bit. And I think I'm fully confident in their ability to ramp it up come playoff time. This team is well coached. They do have some struggles in the clutch. They always have under Joe Mazzulla, but I think they're talented enough and their defense is enough that clutch games aren't going to be too much of a problem. This team just needs to stay the course, not get freaked out by the couple of bad months of shooting. Water's going to find a level eventually. This team is too deep and they have too many good shooters to just collapse like they kind of are right now. The shooting will come back. The defense is still there. The offense, even through these shooting woes, is top 5 in the league, as is the net rating. This team is very good. They're going to be very good come playoff time. And if they come into the playoffs as a 2nd seed, I'm perfectly fine with that. 3 seed, perfectly fine with that. Doesn't change who your second round matchup's going to be. Their only goal is just to beat the Cavs and make it to the finals again. And I think they're in a good position to do that. And the 3-point ball certainly is going to come back down or come back up to the level that we're expecting it to. So Celtics got to stay the course. This team's deep. This team's really good. And they're in a great position to repeat again, I think. Moving on to the second best team in the Atlantic Division. That'll be the New York Knicks. Like I said, a little bit inconsistent this year. The season started on a sour note. They got destroyed by the Celtics first game of the season on ring night. A lot of people were questioning the Mikal Bridges move. There was all of the fanfare going into the season about how his shot looked different, looked awkward. Started out, looked very scared almost to shoot, didn't look confident in his shot or in his offensive bag at all. Since then has come around a little bit. His points per game has ticked up basically every single month, although the 3-ball has still been inconsistent. He hasn't been exactly the player they were hoping for, an all-star level third option, but he's been a great compliment. And Karl-Anthony Towns has been the second best center in the league, easily. He's having an incredible season, and of course part of that is due to Joel Embiid not being in contention for best center in the NBA anymore, but even ahead of guys like Victor Wembanyama, who are having incredible sophomore seasons. I think that Karl-Anthony Towns is 100% going to start the All-Star game. He's 100% deserving. He's playing like an MVP. Jalen Brunson is playing MVP level basketball, and as long as the tertiary guys can step up and fill their roles, this team again is going to be really good and dangerous come playoff time. Last year, I think they only got knocked out when they did because of injuries, and of course that's always going to be a risk when your coach is Tom Thibodeau. He likes to run his guys into the ground, and he's got guys on this team that are willing to bear those minutes. Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, they're warriors. They will play every second that is asked of them without complaint. It's a double-edged sword because it's going to help you in a lot of regular season games, but it might wear down on them come playoff time. My only concern with the Knicks is sort of their secondary playmaking and shot making off of the bench. Maybe Mikal Bridges, not that he would come off the bench, but assumes that sort of role more in the playoffs. Those minutes become staggered a little bit more, especially knowing a Tibbs coach team. You're not going to have too many minutes out there where it's just kind of Deuce McBride and Cam Payne running the show by themselves. I assume there's always going to be one of a Brunson or a Bridges or a Cat on the floor come playoff time. So that's not as big of a worry as their defense. Knicks are 16th best defensive team in the league. And like I said about the Celtics, you kind of have to have an identity on both sides of the ball to be a real contender. And this Knicks team needs to be a real contender. They gave up too much for Mikal Bridges. They gave up Julius Randle to get Karl-Anthony Towns. And not that Julius Randle was a franchise superstar or anything like that, but he was sort of the guy that took them out of the dark ages, that got them back into the playoffs, and somebody that I think a lot of Knicks fans felt some sort of attachment to. So moving on from a guy like that who sort of ushered in a new era, and then of course all of the draft picks to get Bridges, this is a team that's championship or bust. Not that this is their only year to win it. This isn't a one-year window or anything like that. They've still got time to experiment and supplement the team. But I think getting Mitchell Robinson back is the biggest addition they could possibly get at this deadline. Mitchell Robinson has been out since the preseason, since last playoffs actually. He got hurt by Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid sort of grabbed his ankle, and injuries have been lingering since then around that ankle and foot area and knee. So he hasn't played a single game. He's supposed to come back this month. He's allegedly starting to ramp up. I don't want to speak crazy about Mitchell Robinson. He's not Defensive Player of the Year. He's not going to make this team go from 16th best defense to first or anything like that. But he is a deterrent at the rim, something Karl-Anthony Towns is not. It was proven by the Timberwolves last year that double big action can work. And the Knicks last year had a lot of their identity sort of built around the idea that we're going to out-rebound you, offensive and defense. and we're just going to grab every loose ball we possibly can. A lot of that was Isaiah Hartenstein, who of course is on the Thunder now, but a lot of that was also Mitchell Robinson. He was a demon on the boards. He grabs every loose ball he can get his hands on, really, and he really nullified the effects of Joel Embiid in the first round of the playoffs. This is a guy that's capable of really extending possessions for the Knicks, and with a team that has so many great three-point shooters, everybody knows that one of the best opportunities to get an open look is off an offensive rebound, and a guy like Mitchell Robinson just completely opens up the floor in a different way for the Knicks, I think. So having him come back, not only will it help them defensively, just a shot blocker and a rebounder, but somebody that can get offensive rebounds, spray the ball out, and three-point shooting, I think, ticks up with him in the lineup as well. They're 25th in rebound, or 22nd in rebounds so far this year, and 25th in paint defense, so they give up the 5th highest percentage, a field goal percentage on rim shots or shots at the rim. Like I said, Mitchell Robinson will help deter those shots in a way that Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't, although Towns is having a fantastic offensive season. I think if Mitchell Robinson comes back and doesn't have the effect that he has had in the past, a possible substitution could be a guy like Walker Kessler. The Jazz are sort of in no man's land. They really stink, but they aren't the worst team in the league. Walker Kessler is a guy who has a lot of promise as a young player, and coming into the same rookie class as guys like Jalen Williams, he was sort of in the running for Rookie of the Year, or at least to finish up in that top 3 after a very strong finish to his season. I think he's a guy that could potentially get moved. Like I said, the Jazz are in no man's land, and I think it's pretty much open season for them. I'd like to see him on the Knicks if Mitchell Robinson comes back and doesn't have the same punch that he's had before, especially because the Knicks off the bench in the front court are very shallow. I also am interested in Torrey Craig as a guy the Knicks could go after. Just like I said, I'm a little worried about bench scoring and shooting. Torrey Craig is a plus 40% three-point shooter. He brings defense. He's a guy that can take the wear and tear off of Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges and sort of sop up some of those minutes, maybe not in the playoffs, but at least in the regular season, and save some legs a little bit. So the Knicks just get Mitchell Robinson back, see how that affects the defense, see how that affects the offense, and go from there. Maybe you still look to make some more trades, minor ones around the edges. They haven't really given themselves the flexibility to make any big swings, nor do they have the roster construction of a team that needs to make any big swings. They've got they don't really have a whole lot of holes, especially not in the starting lineup. Anything they need to do, like the Celtics, would just be to supplement the sort of stars they already have. Moving on, Philadelphia 76ers, a very, very disappointing team. I think I had them in the play-in in my preseason predictions. I'm not 100% sure. I thought they were not going to be great, but I didn't think they were going to be this bad. I don't think anybody did. The Joel Embiid saga has been such a headache for everybody watching the NBA. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Sixers fan right now, somebody who has season tickets or who grew up loving that team or who watches that team. It must just be sort of devastating to finally have a good roster come in as the winner of the offseason, really, signing Paul George, Joel Embiid is back, Tyrese Maxey is back, and to see what the team is doing this year is just terrible. Their only goal should be to keep the pick. Like I said, there are so many good players, top-end talent in this NBA draft, and this season's a complete failure already. They're not going to win the championship. They're going to have to go in through the play-in tournament, and you're going to have to play the Cavs or the Celtics or the Knicks in the first round. You're not winning any of those series if you're the 76ers. We all know that Joel Embiid really needs to play himself into shape. He's not playing at all, so I can't see him having the opportunity to even play himself into shape come playoff time. He won't be at his best then. Paul George's best seemingly is behind him, and Tyrese Maxey is a very good player, but is struggling as a number one option right now. So I see the 76ers, or if I'm the 76ers, I'm just looking to trade my vets, my Semi Ojeleyes, Kelly Oubre Jr., Caleb Martin, try to get anything I can for them, and sort of commit to a tank. I said that they needed to keep their pick, and some of you might not know exactly what I'm talking about, but a couple of years ago, they traded Al Horford to the Thunder, and the Thunder absolutely fleeced them. The 76ers can only keep their pick if it's in the top 6, and there are a lot of teams in the NBA that are really, really bad. The 76ers are the 8th worst team in the league. The teams under them are going to try to stay bad. The 76ers have to find a way to just out-tank them right now because they're not going to be good enough to get a high 20s pick. They'd really have to pick it up, and they're 15-24 right now. So their best option is just Joel Embiid, play when you can, but no pressure. Paul George, play when you can, but no pressure. Tyrese Maxey, play every game. You're not good enough right now to will us to victories, unfortunately. So I think they just kind of commit to being bad this year. Hopefully they can keep their pick. If not, then this season is just an absolute disaster and sets the franchise back, I think, a couple of years because you lost out on a good pick. You're going to end up trading some guys who have some value, who could have been solid rotation players on a championship team. the only way they salvage this season is they keep their pick. So that is got to be the goal for the 76ers. Got the Brooklyn Nets now. Their goal is simple: trade Cam Johnson. He's too good. When he got drafted 11th overall a couple years back, and Kobe White said Cam Johnson went 11th, like everybody was shocked that Cam Johnson, a 4-year college player from UNC who had transferred from Pitt, a solid three-point shooter and solid defender, nobody thought that he would have the impact that he has in the NBA right now. He's a 20-point-per-game scorer, 50% from the field, 42% from three. This guy is incredible. He is the perfect complementary piece to any team. He's sort of like what Mikal Bridges was last year, where it was like, I mean, if you're a 3-and-D wing, you need to be a Brooklyn Net because you're going to look like an all-star and you're going to get traded for a couple first-round picks, apparently, because that's probably what's going to happen with Cam Johnson. He, I think, is the hottest commodity on the trade block right now. He's not an all-star. He's never made All-NBA. He's a solid role player for his entire career, but I think people are just talking themselves into this guy being a piece that can get somebody into the championship window. And I could talk myself into the same exact thing if I'm a Cavs fan, a Thunder fan, any of those teams. He's just, like I said, having an incredible year. The Nets stink. They're 14-28, but they need to be worse. They should be worse. Cam Thomas is an awesome player to watch. He's an electric scorer, one of the best in the league. I love the culture that this team has now. I think Coach Jordi Fernandez is incredible. I love the defense they play with, the attitude they play with. This is a very fun team, and I think they have a bright future ahead of them. I want to see this team get Cooper Flagg, honestly. I think that he would fit great with this team, bring a high draft pick, a potential franchise-altering superstar to New York, although it's not MSG, it's not that market, it's still in Brooklyn, in a team that I think is really cool, and I'd love to see him get drafted there, like I said, with this great culture. And they have a lot of flexibility this offseason. They're one of the few teams that can kind of throw money around. Jonathan Kuminga is going to be coming up for a contract, or didn't get signed to a contract extension. He'll be a free agent. The Nets can kind of give him something nobody else can. Same with Jimmy Butler. Guys like that who are sort of coming off the books and maybe don't have a great market right now. The Nets are going to be able to be really, really competitive in those markets in free agency. And I just hope that they can commit to this tank, trade guys like Cam Johnson, maybe even Nick Claxton, although he's a solid young player. Got to just commit to being bad. Cam Johnson's too good. He's cost you too many losses. Get rid of him. Send him to a contender, and just try to get Cooper Flagg. And the Raptors, they just need to keep being bad. They're the second worst team in the NBA. They are 10-32. That doesn't seem real. That's horrible. They've unfortunately been dealt a bad hand as far as injuries go. Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and Scotty Barnes, who are their sort of big three of the future, haven't played very many minutes together. All three of them are sort of getting hurt at different times and just can't stay healthy at the same time. Even when those guys are healthy, obviously that's not a big three that's too impactful in the win-loss column. They just need to keep being bad, and maybe you get lucky and you get a Cooper Flagg, honestly. Which, funny enough, apparently he would be going south if he got drafted by the Raptors. He is from Maine, which I guess the point of Maine he's from is further north than Toronto. I didn't know that, but the more you know. So, like I said, their goal, get Cooper Flagg, continue to stink. And honestly, going forward, that's going to be the goal for a lot of teams. If you're bad, you got to lean into it. And if you're good, there are guys like Cam Johnson on the board that could really alter this season. So those are my goals for all 5 Atlantic Division Eastern Conference teams. I'll run through them again real quick. Celtics, stay the course. Knicks, get Mitchell Robinson back and look to complement the starting 5. 76ers, keep your pick. You got to be one of the worst 6 teams in the league to do it. Nets, trade Cam Johnson and commit to being bad. Raptors, just keep doing what you're doing because you're pretty bad anyways. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be back soon. We will probably go to the Southeast Division next. That'll be an interesting one because Jimmy Butler's a hot topic in the NBA right now. But until then, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.